Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Lauren and today we're gonna be talking about Gone Girl. So I am in a new location. I have just moved into college about a few days ago. I'm really sad actually though because my bookshelf from home is still at home. It has all of my books on it. I unfortunately didn't really want to bring a lot of books because if you guys don't know, I'm in chemical engineering, so I probably won't have time to read at all. So I didn't want to bring a lot with me. And that's also unfortunate for today's video because I did read Gone Girl earlier this month, but I didn't bring the book with me because I had already finished it. So usually when I do book talks, I like to hold up the book while I'm talking about it, but you're just gonna have to keep the book cover in your imagination as I talk about it today because I unfortunately do not have the book with me. Today we're gonna be talking about Gone Girl. I finally read Gone Girl. I think that's what I'm gonna title this because I feel like everyone has read Gone Girl and I just had never read it. And I actually read Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn in June, I think. And then I was talking about it with someone and they were like, oh, have you read Gone Girl? And I was like, no, I haven't. And I feel like that's bad because I feel like Gone Girl is her most iconic book out of all of her books. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars and we're gonna be talking about it today. I'm gonna do a quick synopsis about what it's about without spoiling anything, and then I'll let you guys know when the spoiling section will start if you guys still want to read it. So yeah, a quick synopsis about the book. I think this is a thriller and I think honestly it is better that you go into it not knowing a whole bunch. That's what I did because I had never watched the movie. I hadn't really read the back of the book or anything. I just went into it very blind, and I'm really glad that I did because it's so much better when you don't know what's going on. It's one of those books where it's kind of psychologically bringing you through and then changing your mind at the last minute. Basically, there's this couple, Nick and Amy, and on their 5th anniversary of being married, Amy is missing somehow. Nick walks into the house and she's not there, and it's kind of like a crime scene, but not really. It's very suspicious looking. And so the whole book is following the investigation of where Amy is, but it flips back and forth between both of their perspectives. So it flips back and forth between Amy's journal diaries in the past and then Nick in the present trying to investigate where Amy is, and that's the whole book. That's all I'm gonna say. I think that's all you need to know. Compared to Sharp Objects, I think there are a lot of similarities. I don't know, I gave Sharp Objects 4 stars too, so I don't think one book is better than the other. I just think Gone Girl is more of a classic Gillian Flynn book, so pick what you want to read. I think it's a good read though. If you are into thrillers, it's really good and the plot twists are very well done and I enjoyed it. The only thing I will say though is that if you're a person that doesn't like unlikable characters, this might not be the book for you because everyone in this book is unlikable. So now I think I'm gonna get into the spoiler section. So if you have not read it already, click off and I will welcome you back later. We're gonna be talking about a lot of tea. Let's start off with the vibes. It's set in Missouri for most of the book. I think this is one thing that I thought was very similar to Sharp Objects. Sorry if I'm gonna be comparing it to Sharp Objects a lot. That's just the other Gillian Flynn book that I've read. I think it's very similar to Sharp Objects because it is kind of southern town vibes, even though, as someone from North Carolina, I don't really know if Midwest is considered the South, but Sharp Objects was set in Arkansas, I think, and Gone Girl is set in Missouri, which is kind of similar. I did also watch the movie, and in the movie, a lot of the characters had southern accents, so it is still kind of southern small town vibes, but in a more gloomy sense. And then also all of the characters in this book do have their own problems, and it's very similar to the way that Gillian Flynn wrote Sharp Objects. There basically isn't really a character that does anything good, but I really like that about her books, and I think that's why I like reading it because I am a huge fan of characters that are just messed up. When I start to talk about Amy, you guys will see why I liked her so much, which I don't know if that's a popular opinion, but to me it's very unpopular. I think everyone hates Amy, but I'm a stan of Amy. I love Amy. So yeah, moving on to the characters, we have Amy. Big spoiler alert coming. She's fucking crazy. But here's the thing, like I said, I love crazy characters, especially crazy women characters. I'm a fan. I'm always a fan of a good crazy woman. I know that sounds fucked up, but so at the beginning we know that Amy is missing, and Nick walks into the house after his neighbor calls him and is dude, your door is wide open and your cat's just on the porch, is everything okay? So Nick goes back to the house and the front door is wide open and the living room is it looks like there was a struggle, drops of blood in the kitchen and just weird little pieces of evidence, and he doesn't know where Amy is. I don't know what I thought at the beginning. I think obviously your gut instinct is to be oh, she was maybe kidnapped or some type of struggle happened, but then as the investigators come and more people start showing up and pointing out different things, you're kind of I don't really think that that's what happened, it's a little too suspicious. I definitely think that that plot twist of her admitting that oh, she actually is alive and she planned to make it look like she was murdered, I was not expecting her planning to go to that extent, and I think no one was expecting that. I don't know, when she said that she had started writing journal entries 7 years ago, trying to paint Nick as this villain character, and that she had planned to drain her blood so that there would be her her blood in the kitchen, she would like mop it up so it looked like he tried to mop it up, and like how she like still went on with their like treasure hunt for their anniversary, but like put it in these places where he was like having an affair. Like just the amount of planning, I have so much respect for her. Like again, I know that sounds fucked up, like she is the villain, but like I just, it's such a character that like I've never read before. Like I've read crazy women characters before, like Sharp Objects was like full of them. Even some other thrillers that I've read, like there's always like a crazy woman, but I've never had like a type A crazy woman, you know? Like I think, you know, some people are like, oh, you should be scared of like clingy women. No, you should be scared of women that plan every single second of their day and like have planners and all of that stuff, because when it comes down to like executing a crime or a murder or like anything, like they know how to do it. Like she was so prepared, and I like really admired that about her. I don't know if that's controversial, but I really admired how much work she put into it. And I think that like even all readers can acknowledge that like Amy is crazy, but I think like regardless, I think you should just like at least applaud her like a little bit for like how much work she went through. Like I just cannot imagine like being in a marriage and like being that unhappy that I'm gonna frame my husband for murder of myself and then like actually plan to kill myself, but like not. Like I think that's something that a lot of people don't talk about when they talk about Gone Girl, is the fact that like, yeah, in the ending, like she goes back to Nick and like they have their own moment or whatever, but I think people overlook the fact that like her original plan was to like frame him for murder, go away, like drive somewhere, like be off the grid for a bit, and then actually kill herself so that they can really find a body later. Like no one ever talks about the fact that like she was actually planning on like doing it to that full extent of like actually killing herself. And like I don't know why people don't talk about that. I think that just like again shows like how committed she was to it, which is like very like unstable and psychologically fucked up. But I just think that like it's so crazy how far she would have gone and then the path that she ended up going down. I watched a few book reviews on this book and people were like, she's like smart enough to not go back to Nick, but she did anyway. And I was kind of feeling the same way. I agree with that when I was reading it, and even when I was watching the movie, I was like, because you know me, I'm like rooting for Amy to like carry out this plan successfully and to like get Nick in jail and whatever. It just like, as soon as she was like, oh my god, he loves me, after he makes this like fake speech on TV, like trying to win her back, like wearing the tie that she bought him and all of this stuff, I'm like, Amy, no, you know better. Like you should know that he's like trying to like lure you back. Like I don't know, I do agree, I do think she's like smart enough. I think that she shouldn't have gone back, but I do understand the ending, because the ending of them like being reunited and then accepting the fact that their relationship is so toxic, I do think was necessary. If she hadn't gone back, it would have been kind of unsatisfactory, because it would have just been like, we went through all of this for nothing. Like, you know, Nick just gets locked up anyway. And if she actually did die, then it's kind of like, what did she do this for? So I do understand why Gillian Flynn brought them back together in the end, but I do think like it was kind of not fitting in her personality enough. But maybe it was, because you know, like I keep saying she's like smart enough to not go back to him and that like she should keep being revengeful, but at the same time I think she is so focused on Nick and just wanted him to be a better husband that like just her seeing that fake side of him like made her think that that was what was going to happen. I do think she made a lot of mistakes though, that I think, because you know, like she's very perfectionist, she has like a plan, she has a list and all of this stuff, but she still makes mistakes that she can't help but make. Like for example, she's like out at the motel, like out in the middle of nowhere, like trying to hide away while people are still investigating her like murder. She's in this like motel or hotel area with like these people who are also trying to stay off the grid, and because she like grew up kind of rich with like a trust fund in New York and all this stuff, like she doesn't really understand like how to keep her life private in that way, or to like keep her money private, because like she is just carrying around like a fanny pack with like $10,000 in it and is like opening it in public and all of this stuff. And I'm just like, girl, like if you're trying to like stay off the grid, don't like be suspicious in that way. And like that's why I was so sad when she got robbed, because I was like, she really had it coming, was just asking to get robbed. And I think that just like her growing up and like how she was raised, she just like didn't think about that, or like didn't think that that was a possibility. I do quickly want to talk about her parents though, because I think that it's kind of interesting how like the Amazing Amy books were like played into the whole investigation, because like even in the movie I noticed this, like her parents, every time that they're talking or making a press release about like her investigation or whatever, they're always like, we want to bring Amazing Amy home, like we just want her to be amazing again, like we just want to see her come home. And it's all like, if you think about it, like the intention of what they're saying is really just like they just want to write another book about her, and they just want like to keep having that success of like having a daughter that has a book, you know? They were there for the franchise, if that makes sense. They didn't really care that it was Amy. They always referred to her as Amazing Amy, not just Amy. So I think that that was interesting, and it did make me feel kind of bad for her because I do think that like she also thought that her parents didn't really care about her, and I can understand like how that would make her act out more against them and like do all these crazy things. But yeah, so that was like a little side note with her parents. Let's talk about Nick though, because I think there's like some differing opinions on Nick. Nick from the beginning, because you know we switch from these two perspectives, and Nick is very delusional the entire time. If you're looking at it from an investigative standpoint, like he looks so guilty because he doesn't give a fuck about like anything. Like he's showing no emotion. He's like smiling like an idiot on camera, even though like his wife is missing. Like he does not care. He keeps referring to her in like the past tense. Like the whole beginning of the book, I think you're meant to think that he did actually do something, especially with these like weird sentences where he describes like seeing blood on her or like her laying in the kitchen with her head bashed in. Like he has all these violent thoughts towards Amy, and I think that really convinced me to think that he did it, because I was like, okay dude, like why are you thinking about killing your wife? Like did you do it? Like it's just kind of like suspicious in that way. But then when we find out that Amy's journal is like false and that she's been like writing it this whole time to like make people think that he's the villain, I think this is where I saw in some other people's book reviews that they think that this kind of like redeemed Nick's character a little bit, because now that we know that a lot of the stuff that he did wasn't true. But I don't know if I agree with that, because I think still, even though like yeah, he might not have like hit her or like poisoned her on accident or all of this stuff, like even though he might not have done those things, he still cheated on her, and she still knew that, and she still could feel that he was like not as invested in the relationship as she was. Just the way that he was acting in their whole relationship, I can see why Amy would picture him as that kind of person. And you know, the way that she wrote the fake narrative of like, oh, I'm scared of Nick. Yes, it's over dramatized, but it does come from like somewhat of a place of truth, because he was having those like violent thoughts towards her, and he was cheating on her, and he did want to divorce her, and he didn't really care about her anymore. So I think whether the journal redeems Nick or not is like questionable. I feel like it doesn't, because when I found out that the journal was fake, I was like, I still don't like Nick. I still didn't like him. Cheating sucks, like whatever. It did also suck that like Andy was like his student and she was like younger than him and all of this stuff. And the fact that like he kept seeing Andy even though they were investigating Amy's like disappearance, like I feel like that's, again, like even if the journal like did redeem Nick in some way, he's still a fucking idiot. Like the whole time I was just like, God, Nick is so stupid. I didn't really care if he went to jail or not, because in some way I was rooting for Amy, and I felt like he needed some type of like conflict in his life to like make him realize what he was doing, you know? Yeah, I think the more that we read from Nick's perspective, the more that I realized that like what Amy was doing was kind of like deserving. Again, I know I sound crazy. I do think that like reading Nick's perspective and reading what he's admitting to and all of this stuff, all while reading Amy's journal, again, whether Amy's journal was true or not, like I feel like he did deserve some of the revenge that she put on him. Let's also talk about Margot. Margot is like my least favorite character in this whole book. I know some people say that like she's their favorite. I think Margot was like very, I don't know, I just like didn't care for Nick and Margot's relationship. I just think that like Margot didn't have any other redeeming qualities besides being Nick's sister. Maybe that's just because I like unlikable characters and she seemed more like normal, and I was just like, I don't really care like what she's saying, because you know, like it doesn't add any drama necessarily. But I did really appreciate her like telling Nick to his face that he's an idiot, because I think that that was very warranted. And then Desi Collins, like her crazy ex, we find out from Nick interviewing all of these people in Amy's past that like she's just made up lies about them like her whole life. I just think it was funny that Desi ends up dying. Like I kind of loved it for her. Like especially in the movie, she would play the victim so hard, but she was so good at it. Like, I loved her commitment to the plot, and I think that she did need to call someone for help, and he was a very good person to call for help because he did have a lot of money, and he was like very, you know, clingy to her. Like I feel like he would believe everything that she said. I think Desi was the right person for her to call and murder. But again, I think it just shows how crazy that, like, to the extent that she would go, like literally killing someone just so that she can like make up this plot that like, oh, she was taken hostage by Desi. Overall, I don't really know what the message of this book is. I think it really just like shows a great light on toxicity in relationships, because at the end she comes back to Nick and like Nick hates her. Nick knows that she's crazy. She knows that Nick hates her, but she still is staying in this relationship, and she's still trying to tell him to hold her hand and like try to fake it to the public and all of this stuff. And I think that, you know, they kind of have this moment where they realize that they're both toxic, and that but they both belong together because of that toxicity. Like they wouldn't thrive in any other relationship, because like Nick admits that he would be no one without Amy, and like Amy thinks that she can change Nick. Like it's just very toxic in that way. And you know, like everything they did was toxic. How Amy treated other people, how Nick treated hated Amy, how Nick would think about Amy even if he never did anything, like how he would even think about her, I think is toxic. Just like seeing that lens from both perspectives and also from the outside perspective of what their relationship looks like on the outside was like a really good take, and I really enjoyed how Gillian Flynn like explored that the whole book. And again, just like Amy being kind of like the main character, being a crazy woman, I love how we got to see her thought process through the entire thing, because I always tend to like these like antagonist women characters because I think that they're understandable. I don't know, but I think that like sometimes when you read a narrative of a crazy woman, you can kind of understand like where they're coming from, even though it's fucked up and like they probably need therapy. Like it's so cool to like see that perspective and mindset and like kind of understand it, but also know at the same time that it's messed up. Like, I just really enjoyed following Amy along the whole time and like seeing how far she would go and like stealing a pregnant woman's pee to like pretend like she was pregnant and all of this stuff. Like I really enjoyed following her along the whole way and seeing what her intentions were. So yeah, I don't know what you'll take from this video, but I really enjoyed Gone Girl. If you have read it, I would love to hear what you guys think about Amy and the whole book in the comments below. If you've watched the movie, feel free to let me know if you think the movie is very accurate. I think the movie's accurate. I really enjoyed the movie, and I think the like filming and aesthetic of the whole movie really fit the vibe of the book. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars and I would definitely recommend it if you're looking for a good thriller book. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.